Good morning. How are you? Good morning. You know, it says a lot about firefighters that we've got a full crowd here today on a day when the entire city is basically shut down. This crew manages to go about its business as usual. Thank you, Harold, for that generous introduction. Thank you all for the warm welcome. I'm honored to be standing before our nation's firefighters and those who keep our families and our communities safe every day. Now, as I look out among you, the question that occurs to me, that has always occurred to me about firefighters, is the relationship that you've always had with the Dalmatian. How did we get to the Dalmatians as opposed to any other breed of dog as accompanying the brave men and women of the firefighting community? You know, in the Department of Homeland Security, we've got a community of canines and others who perform a very valuable role with the Secret Service, with TSA, other components in the Department of Defense, in the U.S. military. Canines form a valuable role with our special operators and so forth. And some of you probably don't know this, but there's actually a pet store where you can go to purchase a retired canine. I have visited this place. I went in a couple years ago and saw a canine for sale. And this canine had spent an illustrious career with the TSA, and I asked the proprietor how much for this canine. He said $10,000 without blinking an eye. I moved on, a little too pricey. The next canine had spent an illustrious career with the Amtrak police, sniffing out bombs, detecting bombs. I asked the proprietor how much for this canine. $12,000. Third canine, hoping to find one slightly less expensive. The proprietor says to me, well, these two are very good at detecting plots through smell. I do have a talking dog in the back. He speaks perfect English. Really? Well, I'd like to check him out. So he says he's out back. So I go out back of the store, and there's this dog tied to a tree in the shade. And the proprietor said, ask him a question, see what happens. So I asked this dog, what's your story? And in perfect King's English, the dog began to explain to me his career in national security. And he told me about how he had been trained with the United States military. He spent a career in special ops overseas, breaking up terrorist plots, conducting surveillance in multiple languages. He had moved on to TSA. He worked at airports for a while. He would overhear passengers of suspicion, what they were discussing. He then moved on to the Secret Service and to other components of DHS. He retired with numerous commendations. He got married and had a couple pups, and he said to me, what else would you like to know? And I went back to the proprietor and I said, how much for that dog? And he said, $50. And I said, $50? Why $50? Because he's making it all up. If some of you have heard me say before, September 11th is my birthday. On September 11th, 2001, I was in the private practice of law in New York City. Like millions of others, I was an eyewitness to the events that day. I watched in shock as a beautiful, serene, and ordinary workday was transformed in an instant to one of the worst days in American history, while thousands of people and ultimately a nation coped with a tragedy that theretofore was unimaginable. None of us will ever forget the service and sacrifice of the 343 firefighters who gave their lives on 9/11. In the years 2001 to 2008, before I joined the Obama administration, and I commuted to work every day in New York City to my law office in Midtown on 6th and 51st, I commuted one of three ways from New Jersey. New Jersey Transit through Penn Station, then the subway up to 50th and 7th Avenue, or I would drive to Port Authority Bus Terminal on 8th and 40th, or take the bus to Port Authority Bus Terminal on 8th and 40th. When I took the bus, when I drove, I would walk up 8th Avenue exactly the same way to my law office, and every morning when I walked, I would pass 8th Avenue and 48th Street and the fire station there as a reminder of the heroism of those in that particular firehouse who lost their lives, the 15 firefighters there. Perhaps my best day as a public servant and as a lawyer was May 1st, 2011, the day we got bin Laden. My second best day as a public servant was 5 days later, that following Thursday, when I accompanied the president back to New York City after that event. We landed on the Lower East Side and went to Midtown, and guess where we went? 48th and 8th, to the fire station there to have lunch with the firefighters. Out of 9/11 was born the Department of Homeland Security, and it was out of that day that my own personal commitment to the mission of Homeland Security was also born. The basic missions of the Department of Homeland Security are preventing terrorism and enhancing security, securing and managing our borders, enforcing and administering our immigration laws, safeguarding cyberspace, safeguarding critical infrastructure, and strengthening national preparedness and resilience. Each of these missions impacts the safety and security of the United States. Therefore, each of these missions impacts the safety and security of the people and the communities that you serve. Increasingly, the department relies on our partners at the state and local level to help us achieve our missions. Increasingly, we rely on firefighters to serve not just as first responders, but in many ways as first preventers too. You are called on to respond to a wide variety of threats and hazards. You are often the first ones on the scene of an incident, whether it is a terrorist attack like the Boston Marathon bombing, a major storm like Hurricane Sandy, or a deadly tornado like those that struck Missouri, Oklahoma, and Alabama in recent years. Firefighters understand the importance of prevention and mitigation and planning and collaboration ahead of disasters and emergencies. Firefighters also understand the importance of an integrated and effective response. It speaks highly of the fire service and emergency medical service that every single victim that left the scene of the Boston Marathon bombing survived. Firefighters and IAFF have been strong partners to the Department of Homeland Security since our founding more than 11 years ago. As Secretary, I commit to you to grow that partnership, listen and learn from you, and respond to your needs and concerns. I know a topic of great interest to you is DHS grants. DHS supports firefighters primarily through two grant programs, the SAFER Grants and the Assistance to Firefighters Grants, or AFG. Both are annual programs administered by FEMA, and both are extremely important to firefighters, especially given the fiscal realities we all face. IAFF has been instrumental over the years in getting Congress to continue funding these two programs. I thank you for your continued support and advocacy. The SAFER grants help fire departments and firehouses maintain the staffing you need to protect your communities against fire and fire-related hazards. These grants not only fund the hiring of new firefighters, they help you rehire firefighters who have been laid off or whose positions have become vacant due to attrition. For fiscal year 2013, DHS made available a total of $320 million for the SAFER program and building on a strong record of support for firefighters under this program. Beyond the numbers, however, is what that money allowed you to do. SAFER grants have supported the hiring or rehiring of nearly 11,000 firefighters across the United States, keeping you on the job and our firehouses staffed, protecting our communities, and supporting our economy. Another critical program is assistance to firefighter grants, which helps firefighters and first responders obtain the equipment, protective gear, vehicles, training, and other resources you need to do your jobs. For fiscal year 2013, DHS made $288 million in AFG grants available. We have improved that program to ensure that all components of the fire service receive an equal share of the funds, and we have reduced the local match requirement and raised the caps so larger fire departments can get more funding. Lastly, we are working directly with the IAFF to support training on hazardous materials and weapons of mass destruction. We know firefighters can encounter a range of hazards on the job, and we want you to be prepared for whatever may come, including WMD. Since 2002, DHS has provided $12 million for peer-to-peer training of firefighters, and the IAFF has trained more than 20,000 firefighters on hazmat and WMD threats. This kind of training helped improve the response to the Boston Marathon attack. The Department of Homeland Security is proud of our partnership with IAFF and with fire departments, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel across the United States. But as we know, our work is not done. Part of our overall challenge, both at DHS and in the cities and communities you serve, is to continue to learn from and adapt to the changing character of the evolving threats and hazards we face. 9/11, Hurricane Katrina in 2005, the underwear bomber in 2009, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010, Hurricane Sandy in 2012, and the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013 illustrate these evolving threats and hazards. Together, we must stay one step ahead of the next terror attack, the next cyber attack, and the next natural disaster. Speaking for myself, I value the partnership of everyone in this room. I have tremendous appreciation and respect for our firefighters and our fire services, and I look forward to working with you and your communities to meet our shared goals. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, sir. You're terrific. So much on point. That's really.